Welcome to Vegan Business Talk with Katrina Fox, author of Vegan Ventures, Start and Grow an Ethical Business. Hello and welcome to episode 46 of Vegan Business Talk. I'm Katrina Fox, journalist, author, media and PR coach, copywriter, editor and proofreader, and founder of Vegan Business Media, a content, events and training platform providing success tips for vegan business owners and entrepreneurs. In this episode, I interview Kristin Lajeunesse, freelance marketing consultant, owner of Kale Media, and founder of Will Travel for Vegan Food. After graduating from Emerson College with a master's degree in integrated marketing communications, Kristin landed a dream 9-to-5 office job with an animal rights non-profit organisation in Boston. In 2011, she felt herself drawn to entrepreneurism and launched various businesses, including Vegan Weddings, which she recently sold, and Kale Media, while still working full-time. One day, she got the idea to quit her job, sell her stuff, and move into a van to travel across the US and eat at every vegan restaurant. This passion project, which lasted 2 years, led to a book and website, Will Travel for Vegan Food. During this time, Kristin amassed a large social media following, including more than 100,000 followers on Facebook alone. Since then, she's travelled across the globe, earning income from freelance marketing, lifestyle design coaching and consulting, as well as her online programme on how to launch a book on zero budget. A true digital nomad, Kristin helps passion-driven individuals gain clarity around their goals and business ideas. In this interview, she talks about how a passion project can turn into a career and initiate additional business offerings, the challenges of working and running a business while travelling, the first 3 things you need to do when landing in a new place to ensure you can get your work done, why she advocates not paying to promote Facebook posts unless it's something of major importance, the downsides of mass following others on social media to gain followers, how to get a sponsor for your book or other project, and much more. Here's the interview with Kristin Lajeunesse of Kale Media and Will Travel for Vegan Food. Hello, Kristin. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Oh, that's wonderful. So, really excited to talk to you because you are really a digital nomad and you've really taken that to its ultimate. As we've said, just mentioned, you're travelling around the world. You've hired a van, quit your job, hired a van, and ate in all these restaurants across the US. Now you're here in Australia. So, for the purposes of the listeners, I'm actually doing an in-person interview for once. I got to meet the lovely Kristin, and we've been hanging out at festivals, Cruelty Free Festival, World Vegan Day, and we're sitting here doing this interview today. So the first question I always ask everyone is why? Because you had a job and then you launched some other businesses. You've got Kale Media and you also had Vegan Weddings, which I believe you recently sold. And you've got Will Travel for Vegan Food, and you travel on the road, you do freelance marketing while you're traveling. So tell us a bit about your why. Why do you do what you do?
That's a tough question because it all feels like it's been happening really organically. Before I started traveling, I was working in an animal rights organization in their communications department. I was putting to use my graduate degree, which is in marketing, and I was working for an organization that I support and believe in. And so life was good, things were good, but there was just something internally that felt unsettled, something I couldn't quite put my finger on. And when I started exploring that, I came across other digital nomads, people that were creating what they called passive income and developing their lifestyles around their greatest passions and figuring out how to make it happen kind of no matter what it took. So I really obsessively started reading about what these people were doing. And so then I started asking myself questions on how would I spend my time if money wasn't a thing, or if I wasn't worried. Isn't it? Yeah, it's a tough one because we all want to think about that life, what that looked like. I didn't have to make money and all of this, right? So this was kind of brewing around this idea of, okay, if I didn't worry about all of my student loans and other things I need to worry about as a proper adult, how would I spend my time? And so I started thinking, well, I fell in love with food after becoming vegan, and I was already that vegan friend that was taking pictures of their food when you go out to eat. I was like, wait, don't eat anything yet. And then I was also really interested in travel, but I hadn't really done much at all. I just talked about it a lot. So these ideas were brewing around, and I also knew at some point in my life that I wanted to be self-employed, but I didn't know what that would look like or how I'd get there. So all these things were kind of merging and rolling around in my head, and one afternoon I was coming home, not coming home, I was on lunch break from work, and I go back to my literal cubicle at the animal rights organization I was working at, and the words "will travel for vegan food" just kind of appeared before me, and it was almost like this awakening where I knew exactly what I needed to do. So I had composed an email to my parents that afternoon. I said, "You guys, I have the best idea. I'm going to quit my job, I'm going to move into a van, and I'm going to try to eat at every vegan restaurant in the country." Now, that's kind of how the idea for Will Travel came to me, but there was so much more that needed to happen. As you were saying, you had discovered that I had these other businesses, vegan weddings. Kale Media is actually the name of my overarching business, so I can monetize and freelance and all that stuff. So the why, it was a drawing, or as cliche as it might sound, a calling almost, where when I realized that I had these interests and that I could maybe figure out a way to make money while pursuing them. So I started to think of any way that I could bring these things together. And so anyway, I started kind of dabbling in my first blog. I was teaching myself how to create a website using WordPress, and I was just trying to get my hands in all of the things. And for the why aspect of it, I suppose it was more just feeling a draw to, or a calling almost, to go down this road of turning my love of veganism and food into more of a career. But I didn't think of it that way at first. I just thought, I really want to do this project. I want to see if I can make it work. Because actually the first 2 years of my traveling around, I was living off of donations the whole 2 years. So I had started the vegan wedding website while I was teaching myself how to build a website and how to monetize it. So I was kind of selling advertisements on the site from vegan vendors and things like that. So that was my first kind of business that I started on my own. And it was silly because even though I noticed that there was no vegan wedding website out there yet, which is why I thought I would try this one. I don't care about weddings. I'm not interested in that stuff at all. So it was kind of a futile beginning because I wasn't very passionate about it, which is why I ended up selling it a couple of years ago, because I thought it had a lot of potential. There's still kind of nothing out there like it, but I just didn't have the drive to kind of make it work. So I guess the short answer to your question is I just felt drawn to the lifestyle of nomadic living, and then am interested in kind of doing whatever it takes to make it work.
Love that. What I really love about that is, like you said, about following your passion. And because one of the things I was going to ask you is, like, did you set up this whole Will Travel for vegan food, right? Did you know, right, it's going to become a book, it's going to become a brand? I know from what I'm hearing from you, it wasn't. And I really like that. I had a similar thing when I had the epiphany to write the Vegan Ventures book. And I've had people say, oh, but you should have created an online program before you did this and the other. And I was just like, sometimes you just know when you've got to do stuff. So I love that you really followed your intuition, which I think a lot of us ignore, and just went for it. And obviously for some people, working full-time job in an animal rights organization, that's like, oh my god, it's like their dream job, and you obviously loved it, but there was something deeper calling, and you had the courage to follow it. So I think that in itself is really, really fabulous and inspiring. So let's talk about some of the challenges. So tell us about some of the challenges. Well, you talked about one of the challenges, I guess, of starting up vegan weddings because you didn't have the passion.
Yeah.
What about in terms of Will Travel for vegan food? Like when did you decide to kind of turn it into a business and a brand? And what were some of those challenges?
That's the thing. I don't view Will Travel as a brand or a business because I haven't fully ever monetized it. Now, I have had merchandise, t-shirts and things in the past, which I didn't enjoy figuring out how to do that part of it. And I think because the first 2 years of the project were fully supported by donations, I never felt comfortable asking for money beyond that. Now, there is a book, and that's a whole other story because I wasn't planning to write a book, which we can talk about in a little bit. But I think because my graduate degree is in marketing communications, when I set out to do the project, my brain immediately was just going down the road of, this is kind of a cool name, and then what would I use for, the imagery? And my mind was just already working in that direction. There wasn't necessarily a plan behind it where I was thinking, okay, in order to get X number of followers, I need to do blah, blah, blah. It wasn't that way at all. It was just, I need a platform because people are giving me money to do this, and I want them to see that their money is being used the way that I said it was going to. So I had created this online but the online presence of Will Travel, simply to demonstrate that I was doing what I said I would do. So even to this day, I mean, the Will Travel project has been going on for about 5 years now, and I still don't look at it as a business. And even though there's a book that the publisher makes money from, not me yet, but even though there is, you could look at it, as monetizing through the book, and I have used this channel to try to sell other products and services that I do, because I have had questions from the vegan community, which has led me to create these other businesses as well. So yeah, I've never viewed it that way. I think it's just kind of organically there have been pieces that I have pulled from it or approached in order to explore monetizing things.
Yeah.
But yeah, the Will Travel brand itself, I don't view it as a business, actually. It's just a passion project, really.
Cool. What about them with Kale Media, like your freelance kind of marketing and the type of and trainings that you do? What were some of your challenges starting out there?
Well, it was trying to figure out if I could charge for my time and what was essentially just talking to people about what they wanted to do. Because what was happening is, as the road trip was ending, I was getting a lot of questions from people about, how can I quit my job and do something, and how can I go out and follow my dreams and do all these things. And so I ended up really enjoying having those conversations. And sometimes 3 to 5 hours later, I'm on the phone with someone, or we're having coffee, and it turns into this whole day where we're just brainstorming together to figure out what they can do. And then, of course, my marketing brain would kick in, and we would start talking about how they could do some unconventional promotion and, guerrilla marketing and all these things. So it would take so much time, and I loved it, but I realized maybe I could actually charge for that time. And that's how the consulting end of it started. But the challenge was getting people from, can I pick your brain, right? When they say, I like what you're doing, can I pick your brain and buy you a cup of coffee? Moving them from that to actually asking them for money. That's the hardest thing to do, because I enjoy it. I want to give my time, but look, I also have to feed myself and pay my student loans, right?
Absolutely. I love that. I've actually got a blog post, I don't know if you've seen it, on the Vegan Business website, and it's actually called Don't Pick My Brain, Rent It. And it's literally all about that. It's a guide for vegan service providers. And I even say, like, it being like some of it, like, you kind of don't want to be thought of as, because it's for the animals or for the cause, it should all be free. And if you don't provide it free, you're this heartless capitalist, greedy person. So I get it, but you're right. We've all got to support ourselves. And when we've got these skills, you've spent your time and money educating yourself in marketing, you've got these skills and these talents, and it's okay to charge for them. So I love that you've brought that up, actually. I'll put a link to that blog post. I'll send it to you as well. It's a good one. So what about then some of the challenges involved? And I think we touched on this when we were in Melbourne last week. You were saying about your internet connections while you're traveling. How does it work? Like, what are some of the challenges, and how do you overcome them from doing this paid work whilst on the road, literally traveling around the world?
Yeah, the biggest challenge is balancing, all of the pieces, because I don't have an office or a space I can rely on for Wi-Fi all the time. So every time I land in a new place, my priority is, where do I have Wi-Fi? Where can I find quiet space to do work? And then figuring out when I have blocks of time to do that, and balancing in actually being able to enjoy where I am and documenting it, right? Because my primary passion is really this Will Travel stuff. So immediately I get somewhere, I have my camera out, I have my phone, I want to take pictures of all the food and the scenery and video and all the things, and then I have to back up a minute and be like, okay, I still need to make sure I get that freelance work done or have that client meeting. And so the challenge is, when I land somewhere, is making sure I have my priorities straight and not jump into the stuff that I might be a little more excited about in terms of the sightseeing and food spotting and all of that. Because even though I'm documenting it while I'm out and about, I also have to find time then to edit that content and put it out there as well. Now, for a little while, the past few months, I had a sponsor, so there was even more priority to make that happen, because my exchange with them was monetary support for video tours, vegan video tours of cities. So I had to balance finding time to edit videos, which takes me for anywhere from 4 to 6 to 8 hours to edit one video together. Wow. Depending on how much content I have from, say, one day at a festival or, a week's worth of food things, So the videos take a while. The blog posts take even longer, because I don't actually enjoy writing that much, so that takes a little bit longer. And then my freelance work is about 20 hours a week or more. So it's really just prioritizing each piece and making sure that no matter what happens, I need to get that stuff done. So it's finding Wi-Fi, finding quiet space, and then making a list of how to prioritize each of the things I have to do every week.
So are you quite a good time management sort of person?
No, I'm terrible.
I like you said you make lists at least. You know?
Yeah, no, I try, but and it's different every time I land in a new place. There have been instances where I've struggled for days to find like reliable Wi-Fi or something, which is obviously like a first world it's not a terrible issue, but for the work that I do, it does have to be a priority. Absolutely. So it can create quite a bit of stress, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, got it. So talking about that, so your brand is essentially you, and obviously there's only so much of you, and like we just talked about, only so much time and hours. So what do you do? Like, how do you broaden broaden your base? Like, how do you sort of leverage your skills to reach a broader base of people and to make more money? Because you talked about passive income as well as that one-on-one sort of time.
Yeah. I don't think I do a good job of it. Like, in theory, I know how I should be spending my time, right? In addition to the things I just mentioned of my priorities, I also should make time for a bit of self-promotion or outreach to get other clients, or to, if there are other passive income products that I do have in the queue and that are ready to go, that I just haven't sat down to create the niche website for them or whatever it is to promote them. It's creating the space to promote the things that I do have. So, sorry, what was the question?
How do you leverage your skills to reach that broader base? So it sounds like you've got some ebooks and some online trainings which you're planning to put out there.
Yeah. So I do have, the problem is that I have too many ideas, right? So in saying leveraging the skills, sure, I could do all these 10 different things. My challenge is making sure that I focus on one or two at a time.
Oh, okay.
So
that's good advice, actually. Yeah.
Yeah. So I suppose the skills that I'm working with are just my background in marketing, and I really enjoy promoting the products and services because I like to demonstrate that you can do it in a way that's non-invasive. And I think there's this stigma with marketing, quote-unquote marketing in general, where it's, just always got to be big and hard and negative and all these things.
Yeah.
So I like the idea of coming up with kind of different ways to promote my products and services. But to be honest, the last few months of traveling abroad, I haven't done any of that stuff. I've just been maintaining my existing income streams just to get by, and then once I'm more settled in Thailand, which is my next destination, then I'll be able to get back into my routine. Because there's this idea of being a digital nomad. Oh, you're always in this new place, and it must be fun and easy and exciting, and kittens and puppies all over the place. And while that is great, you still need to have some routine in order to get stuff done. At least I do. Right. I need some space to really dig into the projects and things. So my preferred method of travel is actually to be in one place 3 to 6 months at a time. Okay. So that I can kind of not only dig into the community and culture of where I am, but also get my work done and work on these other or different or new projects, and not stress about the fact that I need to plan my visa and passport thing and all the other logistics that we're not even talking about today, like all the little things.
Yeah, for sure. No, that makes sense. I'm glad you said that, because like you said, I think there is this kind of glamorous thing about, the whole sitting with your laptop on the beach and it all being cruisy. Right. But I love that you've mentioned all that. Well, actually, there's a whole lot of other stuff to it, particularly if you're, looking to bring those income streams in. So, no, that's great. Thank you for sharing that. So do you have any staff? Like, do you have anyone help you, or is it kind of you doing everything?
Mm-mm. It's just me. Yeah, over the years, I've tried working with, or I have successfully worked with a few different people, or had people kind of work on commission or volunteer, some combination. And it's helped. Like with the vegan wedding website, I had some people working with me, which was great because, again, I didn't know anything about that industry, and I had people working with me who just had a vegan wedding, and they're all excited about it. But I found that especially now, while I'm traveling in the capacity that I have been, like a new country every few weeks, which is exhausting. Amazing. I'm not going to complain. Amazing. But it's too much to try to balance bringing someone else in. I think if my businesses or other products or services were any bigger than they are now, I could maybe try to pull someone in and work with them. But I just don't have the brain room right now to work bring someone else in and work with them.
That's cool. Let's talk a little bit about so-called competition. So nowadays, like I say, we sort of know you as well as you've got your freelance marketing. We know you as a blogger and vlogger, and there's obviously nowadays there's been an explosion of other vegan bloggers, vloggers, writers, coaches, life coaches, business coaches, marketing consultants. So quite a lot out there. How do you go about standing out in both within the vegan business arena, appealing to vegan business owners, and outside of that?
Well, I tend to believe that your whatever it is that you're selling or providing is automatically unique because it's from you. So I could be sharing the same exact message as Marie Forleo, right? But she has a different way of delivering that message, just in her tone of her voice. As simple as that, right? And some people will love the way she does it, and some people won't. Some people will love the way I do it or the way that you do it. And so I never sit on or think about how can I differentiate myself in that regard, because I know that the way that I create a product or service is automatically different because it's coming from me. The challenge there, though, is I think we see other people that are successful or where we want to be, and we try to model what we're doing after them, and then unfortunately what can sometimes happen is we start to sound and look like that other person, and that's the problem. You lose kind of your own character in it. So even if you're creating a product or service that has nothing to do with you, so we can talk about Will Travel because it is, as you were saying earlier, kind of based on my personality or character. Even if I was creating something completely outside of that, I still need to let a little bit of my personality drive the content, the way it's written, because I need to speak to the people that are going to be drawn to the way that I present something. Yeah. So I never really get caught up, or try not to get caught up in competition or differentiating myself. I just know that in producing content in a way that feels authentic and exciting to me should be enough. Now, I know it depends on how big you're planning to grow your business and if you're going to have employees and doing all these things, but for someone that's just working by themselves, for themselves, it seems to be working for me that way at the moment. Yeah.
Excellent. I love that you shared that. That's a really good point, because I think we could all, like you say, get caught up in that whole comparison thing, and particularly if someone's further ahead than you, and they've got a ton more followers and they've got a load of content, it's kind of like, oh, well, what's the point almost? Or, we try and be like them and, like you say, lose the character. So, I'm really glad that you shared that. That's really inspiring stuff. So let's talk a little bit about marketing. So what about the word vegan? I ask this to everybody. The use of the word vegan or not. Obviously, you've used it in Will Travel for vegan food. You used it in vegan weddings, and you've got Kale Media, which is a nice name after a vegetable. What are your thoughts on the use for vegan business owners and entrepreneurs on whether and how much they should use the word vegan or not?
I think it depends on how comfortable they are with it. I mean, I identify with the word vegan personally, so it makes sense for me to be including that word on my platforms and in the branding and whatnot. But let's say I was starting a new restaurant, and from the outset, my focus is differentiation outside of my personality. So I know that I'm going to want to create something that I'm choosing my target audience to be non-vegans. So I know, okay, non-vegans, they might be afraid of the word vegan. And then working kind of backwards from there. I really think it depends on the person and the type of business. I mean, I've seen amazing, successful restaurants that do not use the word vegan, and they credit that with the fact that they're successful. And then the opposite, restaurants that are booming that use the word vegan in the title of the restaurant, and they think it's because they're drawing in the vegan. So I think, honestly, I don't think there's a way to do it wrong. I think you just have to move in the direction that feels comfortable for you. And if you're going about your business and planning it from step one in knowing who your target audience is, then that will help clarify how much you should use the word vegan. I mean, it really just comes down to market research and knowing where you're advertising, who you're advertising to, and what the type of person is that you're going to bring in. Do they already read books that use the word vegan or not? You should know this about your client or customer before promoting to them.
Yeah. Great idea. And I think that touches back to what you just said as well about bringing your own character and your own voice through, because for example, I looked at the sales page and the content of your book writing, book promoting online course that you do, which is great, and you can just see just the terminology that you use, it's appealing to a certain person, and they will be drawn to that. So, and similar, I guess, with the word vegan, I guess a lot of younger people, particularly nowadays, millennials, they're not frightened by the word vegan so much as
and we have a range range of it these days. You know, there are people that use plant-based because that's more accessible to a certain demographic, or people that just say they're health conscious. Like, you could really just kind of come from any angle. I think you just need to have super duper clarity on who you're talking to.
Awesome. Let's talk a little bit about marketing and social media marketing. So you've got a really large following. You know, you've got over 100,000 followers on Will Travel for Vegan Food on Facebook alone. What tips can you give some vegan business owners? Because that's the big thing nowadays. Social media is changing a lot, and businesses are finding it kind of harder and harder to, get those big, platforms organically and genuinely, as well as then sharing their stuff, and it's only going to a small percentage. So what advice can you give vegan business owners and entrepreneurs around social media?
There, you might notice a theme in what I'm saying, but my biggest piece of advice is always to come from a place of what feels authentic for you. So posting with character, with how would you talk to your friend if you were sharing an exciting news article with them that you think that they would love? Like, as you're posting things, don't worry about it sounding corporate-y or businessy. Think about how you would talk to a friend. And of course, depending on, again, who your demographic is, you might not want to be using swear words or things like that.
Yeah.
But just think about it coming from a place of who you are and how you would share information. Do not get caught up in the time of day or the day of week. It's too stressful to worry about that. And social media, especially Facebook, changes so quickly, their algorithms, that I would not worry about getting caught up in like the schedule of posts. Now, again, it can depend on the type of business that you have. If you're working within a business where it's driven by your personality, you can put a little more tone in there of who you are. If you're maybe managing social media for someone else, you just want to make sure that you have the language clear on what they're comfortable using. But I would say post with your authentic voice. And I know that can even be challenging for people, though, too, because they say, what does that mean? How can I find that? And it's really just, again, if you found an article or a picture of food that you were excited to share with someone, how would you talk to them if you were sharing it with them? Would you just say, here it is, this thing I ate today? Or would you like, oh, guys, I'm so excited, look at this thing that I found? And you can almost feel the energy through the words, even though you're not verbally,
exactly.
like I just did now, but you can kind of tell.
You can feel that. Yeah. What about in terms of growing the platform then? Like, because, how do you get, particularly for people who are starting out, or they've maybe got, a couple of thousand followers or likes, I mean, how do they get to those bigger numbers that you'd hit?
Yeah, there are a couple ways that you can do that. One of them is, I actually call it the switch and go method, which you don't even need to call it now because, again, the Facebook platform has changed where you don't need to physically switch over from managing Facebook as you personally to your business. You can just quickly there's a drop-down button where you can leave a comment as the name of your business versus your personal page. So I used to call it the switch and go, where you'd switch into your business account. And in this case, you would just use the drop down now. But it's basically just networking. So from your business account, going on to other businesses, business pages that you support, like, want to interact with, or that have a viewership or a type of person that you want to attract, and just interacting with their posts. And I'm not talking about the spammy ones that we've probably all seen where it's just a generic, cool, I like food too, or whatever. You can tell right away that it's like an Autobot or something. But take time, schedule 10 minutes a week at most, or every morning before you jump into your work, take 5 to 10 minutes and leave some comments on some other pages. You can do this on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, all the things, on YouTube, wherever you're most excited to be engaging. And go leave some comments, interact. Just make sure that they're authentic and that you're doing it because you do want to connect with the people that are either managing the account or they're people that are already engaging on the account that you're interacting with. And you can also, if people post, questions or comments under another business's page, you can jump into the conversation, but just make sure it's helpful and supportive and not like you're taking away from the person that's managing the account. So that's one thing. Another thing is, especially on Facebook, just never pay for promoted posts. I've experimented with this quite a bit. As
opposed to ads? So do you mean like the boost post?
So don't boost anything. Oh my goodness. So I've experimented with this, and I do think that the reason that Will Travel has grown in the way that it has organically is because I actively avoid paying. Now, I've tried it over with different things over the years just to see what happens, and with some of my clients, we've experimented with paid posts as well, or boosting posts. And what Facebook does is they can obviously identify when you start paying for something. And so immediately when your advertising campaign ends, you'll notice a major decrease in the engagement on your page or the amount of views you're getting per post. And that's because they want you to keep paying so that they'll still keep showing your content. Right. And actually, I was working with with a Facebook page, a company that's like a marketing company in a certain city, and they were just paying every single post they were making. They were paying over the course of a year or so. And unfortunately, they had gotten to the point where when they stopped paying for one, no one was seeing their content. And so when I experimented with this on Will Travel a few years ago, I noticed it took about 6 months for everything to reset before the organic traffic started coming back in. So now my general rule is just not to pay unless I have something really important. Like I did pay to promote my book trailer because it's like a once-in-a-lifetime thing. Yeah. My first ever book came out. I really wanted to push it, and I didn't care that it might take some while for everything to reset again. So I paid for that, and then, I don't know, maybe when I did my Kickstarter way back in the beginning, I probably paid to promote something with that. So yeah, I would say don't pay for anything.
So not even like a Facebook ad, like a sponsored post. So not. Are you talking about just pressing that boost button, or like going into that whole back end of Facebook and creating an ad, or are you saying not to do any of
the
those?
Back end is a bit safer because you can create the ad under your personal name. But I don't know how their algorithms work in terms of like if they're connecting you to all the business pages that you manage and if they'll affect that. I'm not sure. The only challenge is if you're paying for advertising for something with your business, you probably want it to be under the name of your business, not your personal name. Yeah. So I've only really experimented with it with the boosting. I haven't paid for the separate ads on the side before.
Okay,
so cool. You might just want to experiment and just observe and see how it affects. But yeah, I would just be wary, especially on Facebook. And now that Facebook owns Instagram, I would be wary of paying for Instagram stuff too. So the two things are try to avoid paying for things while it's still free, while it's still mostly free, and then just network. Take time to network. I think we get caught up in creating the products and services,
broadcasting,
right, and pushing, where really the best engagement and the way you're going to get the most people coming to you and drawn to you is them seeing your name everywhere and really interacting with other pages rather than being like, come here, or, pushing stuff on them, just or kind of naturally showing up where they already are.
Got it. What about following people? Like in order to build your number of followers, like do you advocate like, I don't know, following a certain number of people each day or each week in order to, that are obviously in your target market and that you're interested in? Do you advocate that to try and get your following up faster?
No, I just follow people I'm genuinely interested in following. Right. And again, my business pages are all very much driven by my own interests. So I don't really have any business pages that I've just created to sell one thing that's a bit outside of me. So really all of my online presence, whether it's personal or through what might be considered a business page, is really just by my own personal interest. So again, it's coming from this place of do it as you would if it wasn't a business kind of a thing, like treat it the same way. And so I don't tell anyone that you need to follow X number of people in order to get that followership back. I know that people do this. I know it's a thing, and I've seen it work, but then they have to go unfollow a bunch of people and start over again. And I've seen the effects of that as well, where people notice that you follow them and then you drop them to go follow a new set of people to get them. Yeah. And it just feels a bit tough, when you notice that that's happening. And I've seen that happen with a few very successful Instagrammers, actually, where they have a huge following, but it's all been through this follow unfollow thing. And so I think at the end of the day you end up losing people who might otherwise be interested in what you're doing because they can identify when you're doing it for those reasons.
That's a good point, actually, because that's not a very nice thing. It's like the whole being unfriended on Facebook kind of thing. Cool.
Oh, and that reminded me too, going back to Facebook about paying for stuff, is you can typically identify a Facebook account that has gotten a lot of likes through advertising because you'll notice they have, I don't know, hundreds of thousands or millions of followers. But when they post something, it's like 1 or 2 comments or likes, and that's a clear indication that they've probably done a lot of paid promotion to get bought the likes,
or even bought the likes. Yeah.
So, and when people get that and they realize that that's what's happened, again, I think it takes away some of the credibility of you as a business owner.
Absolutely, that's fantastic. Thank you so much for sharing all that. It's really good advice, because I think Facebook is a conundrum, like, to everybody. Like you say, it changes so much and what have you. So it's really good to get, particularly someone like yourself, who's using this platform a lot, to get your take on it. So thank you for sharing that. That's very generous. So let's talk a bit about the book then. So obviously, having the book, it's I know you didn't plan to do it, but it's actually a great way to position yourself as an expert. And so how did the book come about? Did Vegan Publishers, which are the publishers, lovely guys, Casey Taft, who runs it, did they come to you? Did you approach them?
I was very, very lucky that they had approached me. It was before they started their business. Him and his wife, Kristin, they were thinking of starting a publishing company. She has experience in publishing, I guess, prior to their current business. And so they had been following what I was doing with Will Travel. So this is, again, this is a good example of, like, listening to your intuition, going down this path and just kind of seeing what comes of it, right? Because beautiful stuff happens when you just start tuning into what your body is telling you. So about a year into the road trip, the road trip was 2 years total. So about a year into it, I get a message from Facebook, or from Casey on Facebook, and he said, "Hey, Kristin, my wife and I have been watching what you're doing. We have this business thing in the works." And he was kind of vague about it, and he said, "We'd like to talk to you about working together on something." And I didn't know it was publishing or anything. So I called them up and we chatted, and they said, "Yeah, we're thinking of starting a publishing company, and we're wondering if you were planning to write a book about your road trip, because it would be a great book." And I said, I don't really like writing, and I can barely get myself to write these blog posts, let alone an actual book. And they were like, "Oh, don't worry, we think maybe we'll just do a coffee table book. How about that? We'll do that. We'll just use pictures of the scenery and the food from your road trip." And I was like, all right, well, let's talk about that. So it actually took several months of chatting, because they ultimately decided that early on in their business, it wouldn't make sense to do a coffee table book. Right. It would have been I didn't know this either, but it would have been very expensive to do, obviously, just pictures, right? Yeah. Printed. Yeah. So we had come to the conclusion that I would write a memoir, and I literally Googled how to write a memoir. I had no idea. I had to look up, what is in a memoir? I don't know. So I was just very fortunate that the opportunity kind of fell into my lap. And here's a really interesting thing that happened too, is I say out loud, and I always say when I share the story, that I wasn't planning to write a book, because it wasn't in the forefront of my mind. I was so caught up in the logistics of the road trip, planning where I was going, the timing that the restaurants were open, how I was getting there, the route I was taking, documenting, blogging. It was incredibly time consuming. So I wasn't thinking about it. But the first month that I sat down to write the book, which was right after the road trip ended, I was like, okay, road trip done, time to get into book writing. I was flipping through an old journal that I kept when I was reading about all these passive income people and these lifestyle designers. And I had this one journal where I would take notes and everything. And I just randomly flipped to a page that had a list of 10 life goals that I had. And number 7 said, get published. Oh. And when I read it in that moment, I just started crying. And I was like, oh, thanks, universe. It was really surreal to realize that I had put that intention out there and completely forgot about it. Yeah. And it just landed back in my lap. I mean, it was just so cool that happened. And so I owe a lot to Casey and Kristin for creating that opportunity for me, because like I said, I don't really like to write. I found writing the book really difficult. It took me what felt like a long time, even though I had a deadline, right? So I had to get it done in a certain period of time. But yeah, it was really quite lovely that it just kind of came to me. Yeah.
Wonderful. I love that. So let's talk about the book marketing, because you've got a fantastic online course which teaches people, how to launch their book and market it, which is a really important one. Because, you've been published by vegan publishers. I've been both traditionally published and I've self-published. And even when you're traditionally published, a lot of the companies, the publishing companies, they don't do a hell of a lot when it comes to the PR and marketing. Yeah. So I love that you've created this fabulous online course, and we'll put a link to that in on the show notes page. So what advice and tips can you give us? Like, particularly, let's talk about sponsorship in terms of the marketing. So I think that's the main one, because you've talked a bit about how, you've been sponsored, which enabled you to do a book tour. Can you give us a little couple of tips on how one can go about getting sponsorship for, say, something like a book tour?
Yeah, well, I think the biggest challenge is just being organized, because a lot of companies are being approached all the time, especially like the first one you might think of, if you just think of anything on wanting to be sponsored, the very first company that comes to mind, they likely are getting propositioned all the time for sponsorship stuff. So my number one suggestion is to come at it from what might feel even almost too much of a professional angle. Have everything sorted out. So when I was trying to get sponsors for my book tour, because as you said, it's, something I had to do on my own. It wasn't something that the publishers were able to help with. I knew that I couldn't afford it on the existing salary that I had with my freelance stuff. So I thought, okay, well, what type of businesses would I pitch to? And I kind of made this list of who they would be, what they do, and why it would benefit them. And then before I did any outreach at all, I put together a media kit explaining what the book was about, what I was about, and what the benefit for them would be in supporting me. And I made it look all pretty and in a PDF. I also did individual videos for each of the sponsors. So I would sit down in front of the camera, and for 30 seconds or 1 minute, I would just say, here's why I'm reaching out to you. This is why it's important. And there's really something to be said about being able to see someone, right? So this might be too much detail, but if you're doing something like this, make sure that the white of your eyes are visible in the video, because there's been research that shows that when you can see the white, you're close enough to them, you can see the white of their eyes, then you can identify more with what they're asking of you or saying to you.
Wow, that's a great tip.
So any video stuff.
I'm looking at the whites of your eyes. I can see the whites of your eyes.
Yeah, there's something, inherent that humans, when we interact with each other, if we're close enough to see the whole of the eye like that, then we're more inclined to pick up on whether it's in video or in person. And for vloggers or anyone that does video content, at least some portion of what the content that you create, make sure that people can see the white of your eyes and they'll be more engaged. I was creating custom videos for each one that I was pitching. I was creating media kits. And then I would, if I didn't already have a direct email for them, then I would sign up for an email list, because what happens if you sign up for someone's email list, the auto reply that comes in will usually have a person's individual email attached to it. So then you can grab that email, have the personal email address. It's really, I guess all this rambling is to say, just be uber prepared and try to approach it really professionally, and not just a random email. It's like, hey, I'm thinking about doing this thing. Do you want to be a part of it? Make it come across as if you're almost applying for a job. Like, your resume is your media kit. You've got even a video. No one's expecting that. Set it to a private thing if it's on YouTube so other people don't see it, or have it be a password embedded one on Vimeo or something like that. And don't be afraid to bug them. I mean, you've got to...
Yeah, that's an interesting point. How many times do you have to follow up with people? Or when do you kind of go, okay, I've been following up, I'm not getting any response? Because it's a bit similar to when I teach people how to do media. It's you follow up with a journalist, and then maybe you do one more follow-up, but then there comes a point where... you kind of end up really kind of annoying them. So at what point, when you say don't be afraid to bug them, at what point is there a cut-off point?
I usually go three times before I give up. Okay. Yeah, I'll do 1 week between the first two, and then maybe 3 or 4 days between 2 and 3, the second and third attempt. And then I might try to ring them. If it's just through email, I might try a phone call in addition to the 3 emails. But so only about 3 or 4 times, really. Fortunately, with the few businesses that I pitched for the book tour specifically, many of them were open to working with me, because here was the other advantage that I had, was the book talked about the restaurants I had gone to a little bit, and so some of them were in the book, right? So there was less kind of pressure of, we're in your book, you'll be there for a lifetime, the least you can do is help me get to your store to promote the book, right? Nice. So there was a little bit of an edge in that regard for some of the businesses too. I would say just be really organized, approach it like you're applying for a job almost, and don't be afraid to bug people, and also pitch way more businesses or people than you think you need to, because if you approach 20, maybe 5 or 3 will say yes or maybe. and then you have to talk to them a little bit more. So approach way more than you think you would actually need.
And well in advance, like you said, to be organised. Obviously, I'm planning. You need to do this kind of quite in advance because that's quite a lot of legwork to be doing that.
Yeah, I mean,
so don't say to them, a month before I'm planning
exactly.
to.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I was more excited about promoting my book than writing it. So
I saw that on your blurb for your book training. I laughed when I saw that.
Casey was getting emails from me. My publisher was getting emails like, as I was writing chapter 1, I'm like, I just had this idea for how I could promote. He was like, Kristin, write the book first.
That's funny.
But I was planning my book promotion strategy about 12 months before I launched the book.
Wow.
So, and that's, I felt like that was even a bit too short of time because I had so much I wanted to do. So give yourself a lot more time than you think you would need. So this is the other thing too with like Kickstarter crowdfunding things. I often get emails from people that are like, okay, so next week I'm going to launch my Kickstarter. How do I make a video? And, no, I don't want to make people feel bad who might be coming from that angle, but maybe it's just the marketing brain thing, but I like to give myself, and I always tell people, give yourself at least 6 months to prep for something like anything sponsor related because people need time. A lot of bigger businesses need to make sure they have it in their budget if it's something that they do.
Excellent. No, that's really, really good advice. I'm glad you shared that. I've learned a few things and tips from there, so I really appreciate you saying that. So just getting towards the last couple of questions now. In terms of advice, what about, because you've done this thing, you've had this, full-time job, security, job that you loved, etc. And you knew that you wanted to start your own business and be self-employed. What advice would you give to people who are in that situation now and they think, I want to do what Kristin's done, I want to do it similar to what Kristin's done, I want to quit my job and start a business. What advice would you give them before making that leap from employment to self-employed?
You're going to have to start before you're ready. You're never going to feel ready to do it. Now, it would be easy for me to say, like a lot of people say, just quit your job and you'll figure it out. But I've since learned and decided that if I were to do it again, despite everything kind of magically falling into place as best as it could, as it worked out, I would definitely have tried to plan more for my passive income strategies and streams, passive income streams, before jumping into just quitting and praying that it worked. Because it can work, but I also recognize now that because I grew up in a middle-class, white North American family who supports all my crazy ideas and over the years have helped me out financially when I've needed, I understand that a lot of people aren't in that position. Yeah. So I took a leap that I could say was just a leap of faith, but in the back of my mind, I knew I had this cushion of the support. Yeah, so I would tell people, like a few years ago when I started, I would be that person who's like, anyone can travel, anyone can do it, quit your job, do the thing. But I'm much more of a believer now in just being a bit more prepared. That's not to say that you're going to feel prepared when you're, you've got to just like cut the cord at some point. So I think it's up to the person in terms of what feels comfortable for them, but I would definitely have like 6 to 12 months of livable income set aside, and then getting a good base of whatever that first business is that you want to do, get that up and running, and even just breaking even with that before committing to leaving. Now, leaving your full-time job. I've met a lot of people that have just jumped and gone and it's been fine, and other people that have gone back to the 9-to-5 things that didn't work. So there's not a one-size-fits-all with this sort of a thing. And I do strongly believe that you just have to listen to what your intuition is telling you. But try to differentiate between the fear of getting started and what actually is an unsafe place to be. And that's so tricky because it's different for everyone. Yeah. But at the end of the day, no matter what, even if you're so prepared that you could live for years off of whatever you've saved, you've just got to start before you're ready. You're never going to feel totally ready.
No, I love that. That's wonderful advice. So just final question then. What's your long-term vision for yourself and your brand? Are you going to keep traveling, do the digital nomad? Do you see yourself settling down somewhere? Are you going to grow? Tell us a bit more about the long-term vision.
Oh, I wish I knew. No, I think the last few years I've started to I plan about 3 to 6 months out from where I am now. And it's all based on, again, kind of what I'm feeling or where I need to be. geographically and with work stuff. My priority lately has really felt like I need to focus more on the money side of my stuff, because I started out that way and it was good. And the few digital products I had created were doing well. And then I got really swept up in wanting to travel abroad and do all this stuff. And so I kind of set those things aside. And I've only been relying on 1 or 2 freelance clients to keep me going financially. And so what I'm seeing now is that I will be going back to the slow travel that I was doing early on, so 3 to 6 months in one place, and really digging back into my passive income stuff. I would like to relaunch my How to Launch and Promote Your Book on a $0 Budget ebook. I would like to relaunch that, but with more oomph, because I had completed it last winter, quickly put it out there, and then got distracted by this vegan travel contest that I was entering, and started my international travel. So I'm going to refocus on a few products that I've already launched. I'm going to polish them up a little bit and put them back out there, but with more focus on doing it in a way that I would tell someone to do it. Taking more time to prepare, promote, get it out there so that they can start running on their own and creating passive income in that regard. So I'm going to focus on those. I think I'm going to do that while I'm in Thailand for the next few months. And then I know that I have to be back in the US for February for some Veg Fest stuff that I'll be speaking at. And this summer, I think I'll be spending a few months in Toronto. I have a friend that's moving there now, and so I'm going to go spend some time there. And then I think in the last few weeks, I've decided that I'm going to try to get a 12-month visa for travel visa for Australia. So I'm going to come back.
Come and hang out. That's such good news. You obviously like it here.
I really like it a lot. And
Fantastic.
I thought, I'm actually thinking about buying a van and traveling around like I did in the US.
There's your second book.
Yeah. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see. So, I mean, it's not just kind of one focused thing, which has always kind of been my downfall, I think, is that I get excited about all the things. And I tell people, focus on 1 or 2 things at a time, and I have trouble following my own advice. So I have a few ideas of what the next year will look like, but this is everything I've mentioned to you, nothing has planned or confirmed. It's all just over the last few weeks of what started coming to me, and I tend to kind of think over the new ideas that come, and then the ones that really excite me the most, I get more and more drawn to them, and then I'll start digging in and doing research and planning, and then from there I kind of let it fall into place. Like if there are big challenges in making the Australia work visa thing work out, then I'll know that maybe that's not the right time, and I'll look to something else. So it's really hard to answer that question, because I really just kind of go with the wind, which is a beautiful opportunity that I have in this lifetime. But it can be scary too, because I never know what's around the corner.
Yeah.
So. But my priority is paying down my student loan debt, because as a North American student, I have that. So student loan debt has to be my priority, and then just focusing on creating a comfortable income that I don't have to bother my parents every now and then to be like, hey guys, I can't get home, will you help me?
Yeah. Got it. That's wonderful. You've shared such a wonderful amount of advice, like just, your whole experience, like, with the online marketing, walking your talk, especially listening to your intuition, which I think is a really important one. And like you said, differentiating between genuine kind of fear and, that voice that, is calling to us, but a lot of us try to suppress it and go for the safe option. So I think it's wonderful, very inspiring what you're doing. I think for anyone considering, becoming a digital nomad and, in any way, you've shared some wonderful tips and advice and expertise. So thank you so much for joining me, Kristin.
Oh, thanks for having me. I had a good time.
So that was Kristin Lajeunesse of Kale Media and Will Travel for Vegan Food. You can find out more at kristinlajeunesse.com. And that link is on the show notes page at veganbusinessmedia.com/podcasts and going to episode 46. Now for our Vegan Business News Roundup. Canadian vegan milk brand Vegemite is now available in around 400 Loblaw Companies stores across the country. Vegemite is the first and only non-dairy milk to be made only from vegetables, potatoes, tapioca and pea protein. It's received many awards and accolades, including being named one of 10 most innovative new products at the 2015 Grocery Innovation Canada show, was one of 3 finalist brands for Best New Beverage for the Next Year Awards at the Natural Products Show in Anaheim, California, and at the same show it was voted the Best New Vegan Product by Veg News magazine. With the expanded distribution, Vegemite can now be found in select Loblaws, Fortinos, Zehrs, Provigo, Real Atlantic Superstores and Real Canadian Superstores across Canada, sold in those stores that have a natural products section. See how creative vegan businesses can be. I hadn't heard of Vegemite, and I'm always keen to learn about different ways to make non-dairy milk. Great to see this expansion across Canada. Sales of vegan food in the UK were up by 1,500% in the past year, according to figures released earlier this month by British online supermarket Ocado, reports the London Economic. Ocado's sales of Alpro unsweetened almond milk have gone up by 2,343% since 2015, and that's the equivalent of over 265,000 litres, or around 3,300 baths full of the nut-based milk. Vegetarian alternatives are also up thousands of percentage points, as are sales of snacks such as smoked tofu and cauldron falafel. In the run-up to Christmas, sweet treats are also on the increase. For example, sales of Alpro Vanilla Soya Custard are up 1,142%, Rakusen's non-dairy chocolate digestives are up 1,643%, and Booja Booja Hunky Punky Chocolate Ice Cream, what a fantastic name, I love it, is up 2,756%. I'm not surprised. You want to buy that just for the name alone. Jacques Thudichum, buying manager Chill Prepared Foods at Ocado, said consumer appetite for vegan-friendly foods in the UK is showing no sign of slowing down, as flexitarianism emerges as the key trend of the moment. We've listened to our customers and have hugely expanded our vegan selection this year, adding new and exciting products each week to become one of our strongest categories. That's fantastic. It's great to see that the Brits are embracing vegan foods. And it's a great time to be part of this industry. Meat alternative company Gardein has released a first-of-its-kind breakfast pocket complete with a vegan egg scramble, reports latest vegan news. Vegan sausage, spinach, red peppers, cheddar shreds and scrambled egg are inside the buns, which are frozen. They can be microwaved if you like to do that and cook in just 3 minutes. The scramble is the company's first breakfast-inspired product and the latest addition to its line of pocket foods, which include pepperoni pizza and pulled porkless. Retailers stocking the pockets include Publix, Winn-Dixie, Ingles, Target and Rayleigh's, though they're not yet in every region of the US. A list of stores selling the products are available on the Gardein website. I love seeing the new creations by renowned and popular meat alternative companies like Gardein, and it's something you've got to do as a vegan business owner. You've got to stay relevant, innovate constantly, and make sure that you're meeting the changing wants and needs of your customers. British sandwich chain Pret a Manger are on a roll. Yes, pun intended. Couldn't help it. Just a few weeks after announcing they're planning to open more Veggie Pret stores after the huge success of their central London one during the summer this year, they've added the first ever vegan menu item to their Christmas menu, reports Fortune. The Very Merry Christmas Lunch Baguette contains malted bread, parsnip puree and crispy caramelised onions and grilled carrots with festive spiced chutney, toasted pistachios and peppery watercress. That sounds lovely. So it's another step in the right direction. Ideally, of course, we want all vegan menus all year round, but for a major sandwich giant like Pret a Manger to take these small steps is a good sign. Finally, the UK's first vegan frozen pizza company launched at Vivolution Vegan Festival recently after a successful equity crowdfunding campaign. One Planet Pizza in Norwich is owned by a group of vegan and veggie business people, including Mike Hill, co-owner of River Green Cafe, Jan Wise, owner of the Veggie Red Lion Pub, and Tanya Chapman, owner of Lou Vegan Cakes based in Leicester. They launched an equity crowdfunding campaign through Cedar on 4th of October, offering shares in 25% of the company to vegans and veg-curious people. So people are able to invest a minimum of £16 and a maximum of £496. At the time of this report, the £20,000 target had been exceeded and is currently standing at over £27,000. The company's aim is to get their vegan frozen pizza range and their gluten-free range of ready meals, which are 5 classic dishes from around the world, established as a leading brand of frozen vegan foods and available from local whole food shops, health food shops and mainstream supermarkets across the UK within the next 3 years. So this is a smart way to raise funds. It's crowdfunding, but combined with investment. So instead of people just donating money to a business, they're getting a stake in the company. Now, of course, there are risks that the share value could go down, but it may also go up and investors will receive a payment in proportion to the shares they hold. You can find out more at One Planet Pizza's website, where there's a link to the Cedar platform. So that's it for this episode of Vegan Business Talk. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you enjoyed the show, I'd really appreciate it if you gave it a review and rating on iTunes or any other platform you're listening on. Finally, I encourage you to head over to veganbusinessmedia.com, where you can find more resources, including details of my media and PR consultations, copywriting, editing and proofreading services to help you grow your vegan business. I'm Katrina Fox, author of Vegan Ventures, Start and Grow an Ethical Business, and I look forward to catching up with you in the next episode of Vegan Business Talk. Bye for now.